Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm back after a week of stress, chronic pain, a broken tooth, wedding plans, you name it. So I thought I'd make a short video. There's a holiday tonight and we're trying to get ready for it. But I wanted to come out on here and just say thank you, first of all, to my community post, because I said I looked tired. Did I look tired last time when I did my video? Well, I was sick. I might have had COVID, or I might have had the flu. I don't think it was the flu, or just being run down. I have a fractured tooth. I went to the dentist, and the lucky part is I didn't fracture it any more than it had already been fractured. But when I bit into something, the filling came out, and when the filling came out, I did some damage to my gums, and that's where all the pain was coming from. So I have an appointment at the end of the month, and they're going to put build it up, put a crown on, all that good stuff, scary stuff. In a way. I mean, dentist, I felt my heart beating fast, even though I wasn't really I didn't think I was nervous, but just being in the dentist chair was a little unnerving to me. And I do suffer from chronic pain, from anxiety, and so I was thinking, what do you read when you can't read? Or I should say, when you can't read like you normally read, especially if you're a booktuber. So I thought, like I said, I would make a short video on it. But before I start, I wanted to talk about, I should say, mea culpa, about a book that I really trashed the last time. I still don't like the book or the author, but I was wrong. So I want to just very briefly talk about that, and that's The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. And I had thought that this had, well, I'd read it, but I also thought, well, maybe the writer was right. Maybe it was on Reddit, I think, that this author had a ghostwriter. But I did look for her, found her on, and her name is Margareta Magnusson, and she doesn't need my mea culpa because she's a bestseller for this book. And it's The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter. And she does have, her house is cluttered, but she's an artist, and she lives in Sweden, or she moved back to Sweden. And when I saw her in the interview, yes, it was her, and I realized that, well, as an artist, you're going to have more stuff, you know, than just, well, maybe not more than other people who are hoarders, but she had a lot of knickknacks and stuff, and I judged her for that, and that was wrong. And because she's Swedish, she's forthright, and maybe she said things that rubbed me the wrong way. But she's a real person. She is 84 or something, and yeah. So that's my my little sorry. Still don't like it, but then reading a lot of the decluttering books that I was talking about made me realize that they're really kind of all the same in some way, and that maybe they don't really relate to my particular decluttering that I'm doing. I'm not going to go into all the decluttering books that I read. The latest one I read was Unstuff Your Life by Andrew J. Mellen. Kick the clutter habit and completely organize your life for good. When I was really going through a lot more, I feel much better right now, but I picked this one up last because it didn't have many illustrations, so I wasn't able to really get into the text. And then also, this got a very good review. Andrew J. Mellen. Let me just show you the book, Unstuff Your Life. And he's the Virgo man, professional organizer, Oprah Magazine, I still didn't check if he had a website or not still. But I realized when I was reading it that it was a little dated. And I was saying, wait a minute, we don't have that anymore, and we don't have this anymore. But it's still, it was, when I finally started feeling better, I think this is one of the better ones. And I liked Clutter's Last Stand and also the Pack Rack book that I showed you. My favorite of the lot was Lightly, and her other book by Francine J., Miss Minimalist. Yeah, these were the best of the lot for me. But I started getting tired, and I showed you these before, but let me show you them again in case. I thought these were the most helpful to me. So here they are. And then I realized why they didn't really apply to me. And basically they're talking about drawers, you know, getting your closets and your drawers. You know, if you have a closet that when you walk in, it looks like a total wreck and you don't know what goes where. Yeah, I don't have that problem. And I looked at my drawers. I have one chest of drawers and it was empty. Yeah. I need to put stuff in my drawers, not take stuff out of my drawers. I don't know why that's part of being organized, is to actually use the organization that you have, I think. But I started seeing a same about all these decluttering books that if you read one, basically you've read them all, if you read a good one. I do like the Simplify Your Life. And I think I read somewhere is when you're really poor, you're trying for stability. And then when you get out of that and you start making money, then you want stuff. And then when you get really rich, you want experiences. I kind of disagree with that a little bit. I wasn't ever in a state where I didn't have enough food. Even growing up, we were the working poor. So when I got a little bit of money, I did want some stuff. So that part was true. I did want some stuff. I never got to the point where I was, you know, really getting a lot of really expensive things. But I do remember, and this just came to my mind, when I got married very young, and I lived in an Italian neighborhood. And if you know anything about Italian decors, especially then, it was very elaborate. And I wanted this table. It was a marble table. It cost $200, and 3 people had to bring it up to the 4th floor where I lived. I loved that table so much. It just spoke to me of luxuriousness. And I'm not going to tell you whatever happened to that table, but that's would be another story. But it was so heavy and hard to clean. Marble is a very hard substance to clean. You really have to treat it really well. And here I was with 2 kids at the time, and they were putting all their dirty hands on the table, and I wasn't really smart enough at that time to know how to properly clean, so it got all smudged up. I ended up giving it to my father, who almost broke his back trying to make a chopping block when I left for Hawaii. And I really was upset with him because I gave him the table because it was something that spoke to me as I've made it. I was able to buy something. And you have to understand that I was I was 18, so I have to be forgiven. And also eating out in restaurants wasn't something that we did normally. So eating out, I would take my 2 kids, and the restaurant was called the Rich Lou restaurant, Rishi Lou. It was a sort of a glorified Greek diner that we had in New York at the time. I think we still have some Greek diners. I haven't been back to New York for a while. But I would dress my kids up, take the stroller, and we would eat in this kind of fancy-ish restaurant. And those were more, I think, of both a little bit of the experience. I wanted my children to know that we weren't poor, if that makes any sense. And then we go to the decluttering. How does this relate to all the decluttering? Well, now they suggest that you sleep on a futon. Now, I lived in Japan and I couldn't sleep on a futon, and I was much younger. There's no way I'm sleeping on the floor. There's no way I'm sitting on the floor. It's hard for me to even get up and down. So some of the advice that these decluttering books give are good. Get rid of stuff. Don't leave stuff for your children to get rid of. But then I realized that I don't have that much stuff. I've given away, I have a suitcase right now. Somebody came to my house when I was really in a jam, as we used to say, and I had no money. I opened up my own little, before Airbnb, my own little bed and breakfast where I would feed people. And this Japanese girl came, and she had a $900 suitcase, but she couldn't get it on the bus. She was really upset, so she just left it here. I never used it, and I said, now we don't use those kinds of suitcases. It's very heavy. And she said she paid $900 and she couldn't bring it on the bus, and I didn't drive. She was really upset about it, and I felt bad for her. But I kept it out of some kind of guilt. Like, it was because of me, it cost $900. And I said, why not make somebody happy who needs a suitcase, maybe for storage? But I don't want to keep it anymore. So I've been giving away a lot of kind of nice stuff, and that makes me happy. So if these decluttering books gave me any tips at all, it was just not to keep stuff just for the sake of keeping it. Because somebody gifted it to me, somebody left it here. But I can keep some stuff. I'm not going to get rid of all my photo albums and all that kind of stuff, because I asked my children and they said that it means something to them. So anyway, those are the two books that I recommend the most. Then I started feeling better and I said, okay, I'm going to read a regular book. And I think it was Freddie from Sluggish Reader who told us about 11 Kinds of Loneliness. I couldn't get that book by itself at the library, and I showed you this already. It has Revolutionary Road, which I was told was made into a movie. It had the Easter Parade and 11 Kinds of Loneliness. And I told you about it, and never heard of Richard Yates. I read 11 Kinds of Loneliness, and I stopped at the second kind of loneliness. Couldn't go on to the third kind of loneliness because it was depressing. It was very depressing. But I will say one thing, well, a couple of things. Very well written. It talks about a time that I didn't live in, but maybe was the time of A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, where the way you spoke in New York City, the first two take place in New York City, and it's more of the have and the have-nots and the social classes and how they spoke in New York. If you ever watched the old movies, the Dems and the Does, Dem and Does, and also saying for oil, they would say Earl. So it has to do with, and it's funny how language does evolve, because people don't speak that way anymore in New York, whatever class you are. So it has a lot about class and how the second story sort of had where a poor guy is going to marry, a guy from a lower class is going to marry a girl from a higher class. And this is also, and I would say it was like the 20s or the 30s, but don't quote me on that. And like it wasn't saying that it wasn't a good idea because they didn't understand each other because they came from different classes. So anyway, those are the two kinds of loneliness that I was able to get into, at least finish, but not quite well enough, ready enough to read any more of this book at the moment. Okay, so I started getting tired of the it wasn't doing it for me, the clutter books. And then I went in and I talked about going into the decorating books, and which is sort of a natural progression, I think. And I started getting tired of that. But I just want to tell you that, well, two things. It's always two things, right? I really enjoyed a book that I got called Perfect Neutrals and Color You Can Live With, just looking at the pictures. But I didn't like the book that I thought that I told you about the last time, except for one thing. And I'm going to give this away either to back to my library. Both of those big books come from library sales. And that's The New American Dream, Living Well in Small Houses. And I realized that it wasn't really about designing your apartment or house, small house. It was about designing and how it's more of an architecture book of how to design small spaces, which I live already in a small space, and it's not a pretty small space. I mean, it's a duplex townhouse that's attached to one other house, but it's roomy enough. But then I found this. Now, let me tell you that even if you don't, an architect wrote this book, and even if you don't like, you're not into architecture, he has many, many quotes in this book. And unfortunately, I didn't read a lot of the quotes, so I said, I'm going to have to read them. But I did read the last one, which is a poem. And I think it sums up a lot of what the simplicity, minimalism, decluttering books have to say, and it's by William Wordsworth. So also, can this count as Poetry Thursday? It's not Thursday, it's Friday. Friday morning. Okay, so I'm going to read it to you. Nuns fret not at their convent's narrow room, and hermits are contented with their cells, and students with their pensive citadels, maids at the wheel, the weaver at his loom, sit blithe and happy, bees that soar for bloom, high as the highest peak of Furnace Fells, will murmur by the house in foxglove bells. In truth, the prison into which we doom ourselves no prison is, and hence for me, in sundry moods, 'twas pastime to be bound within the sonnet's scanty plot of ground, pleased if some souls, for such their needs must be, who have felt the weight of too much liberty, should find brief solace there, as I have found. And I was able to read that without my glasses because the words were really big. Let me just put on my glasses because they kind of hurt my eyes a little bit. Yeah, so sometimes you find really gems in books that you weren't expected to find, and I owned that book. That book was on my shelf. So if there's anything about on your shelf. So then comes the book that I want to talk to you about. Last time I talked about the New York Notebook by Laurie Rosenwald, and I had this on my shelf, and my library didn't have it, and it's out of print. So I'm really happy, and it's in really good shape. But I did look at my library if they had anything else by her, and I found the most delightful book. All the Wrong People Have Self-Esteem, an inappropriate book for young ladies, or frankly, anyone else. And I'll show it to you. And it's she's an artist, and it's in the back, there's like sayings, and one really got me. It says, if you've ever gotten kicked out of yoga, this book is for you. Now, this was written, and I'm trying to think, 2008, so it's also dated. But the illustrations in this book, the art in this book is fantastic. And I read the other book for Framed in September. But there's one, Why Do Girls Fight with Their Mothers? And and it says Q&A, and I won't read it all, but it says, I thought this was a no-brainer until I asked my friend's mother, Dorothy, who is French, Dorothea, actually has a brain. She said, and I quote, Laurie, you are so stupid. C'est évident. Of course they fight. This is naturellement, because when their daughters are the teenagers at exactement this point, the mother is gonna strew the change of life where she sees losing her own beauty. It goes on, but I don't know. Trying to read that was really hard because it's in English with a French accent. But oh, here's something that is not going to go well on BookTube. I hate chicklet. A suggestion: try some Jane Austen, baby. Now, I think chicklet is now called women's fiction, but this is an irreverent book, so be prepared for some great art. If you can find it in your library, it made me feel happy. And like I said, when you're going through something where you can't read, and that's the title, what do you read when you can't read? Well, the answer is you read whatever you can read, whatever makes you happy. And I want to do that anyway, having a BookTube channel. But hitting, 74, and I noticed when I had my first COVID for the first time was last year. And when I had COVID for the first time, I started noticing afterwards, and I'm not saying it was long COVID, I'm not going to say what I had, but I did notice aging started rapidly. So I don't know if that's a thing, let me know. Another book that I bought in Minnesota, it's close to Minnesota, in Canada. In fact, when I went to visit Lindy in Victoria, we went to a bookstore and together, and she handed me this book, Binge, 60 Short Stories to Make Your Brain Feel Different. It's a national bestseller. Canadian author is Douglas Coupland. And I've read a few stories. Now, I don't like microfiction. It's not for me. I usually want more. And I've read a few stories. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. There's 60 short stories to make your brain feel different. Well, I wanted my brain to feel different. I didn't want to be feeling sorry for myself, feeling depressed, or anything like that. So I'm going to read more and see what happens. But I have to say that I'm feeling much better now, and I'm ready to get into, and I have more videos planned where I'm actually going to read a Victober book. Yes, I do have Victober. I bought a new book, and it's still in its package. But I think I'm going to be ready. It's not a big book. It's not anything like that. And I did join Audible because Audible had a sale, and I did buy a few Audible books. I'm not a big listener of books, but some books are better tuned, I think, for listening to, especially if you have the print in front of you. So I'm looking forward to reading some of the Audibles, listening and reading some of the Audibles together for Victober, and see how far I get. But for now, let me know in the comments, what do you read when you can't read? And please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I really would appreciate it. I found out there's also something called share. So share! This month is going to be really busy. My older daughter is coming and hasn't been in Hawaii for almost 20 years. I visited her in Minnesota, but she hasn't been back for a long time. So we're planning a wonderful time when my youngest daughter is getting married, and we're really excited. And the main thing, I found out what the main thing is health. And I know everyone says it. Health is, if you don't have health, you don't have everything. So I'm trying to Stay healthy for all the good times, because what books that I'm turning to now are magazines, books about travel, and travel always makes me happy. Even if I can't afford it, or I'm not able to make a big trip right now, or any trip, it still makes me happy to armchair travel. So thank you so much for watching this video. I can't tell you how thankful I am for all the friends that I've made being a booktuber, and how happy your responses always make me. So say hi in the comments. And until we meet again, as you see, I'm feeling better. I wish you all love, health, and as always, aloha.